Welcome to the Quipster Film Review Podcast. My name is Vince Leo. I am a film critic for the website Quipster.net. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoy the review that you're about to hear. If you do, I do encourage you to click the subscribe button, and you continue to get all of my reviews downloaded into your podcast player of choice all throughout the year. Also, if you want to catch more of my work, you can go to my website and read any of my 3,900 film reviews anytime. That's at Quipster.net, QWIPSTER.net. Today's review is a little bit late in coming. That's because I got married over the weekend in Las Vegas to my lovely Sarah, and now I am a married man and going to have to play catch up with some of the reviews that came out in the last week, but hey, it was all worth it. Today's review is called The Accountant. It's an action thriller. It's R-rated because of strong violence and language throughout, and it runs 2 hours and 8 minutes. The main star is Ben Affleck with a supporting cast of Anna Kendrick, J.K. Simmons, John Bernthal, John Lithgow. Jeffrey Tambor also has a small role, as does Gene Smart. The director is Gavin O'Connor, and the screenplay is by Bill Dubuque. In The Accountant, Ben Affleck stars as the titular character. He's a highly functional autistic savant. He's a skilled fighter and gunman named Christopher Wolff, who currently has an office at a strip mall that is actually a front for his real business, and a lucrative one at that, as this under-the-radar forensic accounting wunderkind who is hired to help save major businesses, sometimes governments, sometimes underworld figures that are willing to pay an exorbitant price for his services. His latest client is a famed roboticist named Lamar Black, played by John Lithgow, who wants the accounting dynamo to go through his books in order to find out why his own accountant, Dana Cummings, played by Anna Kendrick, is having trouble with some of the numbers that aren't adding up, which potentially would result in a major financial leak in profits for Black. When Wolff's work is cut short, he can't bear to stop without achieving completion, though the Treasury agents who are on his tail, led by J.K. Simmons, are threatening to undo everything he's built up before that can even happen. As a film, The Accountant is blessed with a talented cast of actors to boast. You know, those actors are what managed to drum up sporadic interest throughout the course of the movie. Unfortunately, they're not able to string much momentum to make the film ultimately worthwhile, mostly due to this really far-fetched plot. There's very idealized characterizations and a wholly lumbering script burdened by this over-reliance to flashbacks to Wolff's childhood as this high-strung autistic boy whose overbearing military psychologist father seeks to break him out of his many idiosyncrasies through this trial by fire that results in Wolff ultimately becoming a deadly martial artist and a sharpshooter assassin, very convenient for the purpose of this action thriller, perhaps a franchise in the making. It does play quite similar to another occupation-oriented film in recent years. Antoine Fuqua's The Equalizer comes immediately to mind. Some people have compared it to the Bourne quadrilogy now, but for me, The Equalizer was the one that I found the most to relate to, except for we had a talented action director in Fuqua and Denzel Washington's charisma to sell that film, and that helped to overcome a very silly plot and poorly conceived situations from the script from Bill Dubuque, who scripted a similarly overlong, shoddily developed film in The Judge. That film also relied on its competent cast to try to elevate a dreadful script to being modestly entertaining. Even though I did not like that movie, truth be told, and I do not like The Accountant. The Equalizer had also been loosely based upon a TV show, which The Accountant often comes across as. It has very long, methodical setups to a plethora of characters who all seem to have their own story arcs that need resolving down the road. Unfortunately, most of the characters aren't interested in the slightest, save for a bunch of Christopher Wolff's personality quirks that involve such things as this strobe light and heavy metal-fueled bout of self-flagellation, which is meant to stimulate himself, and this OCD tendency of perfectly symmetrical eating habits. And that leaves us without much of a rooting interest in seeing what developments happen for any of these characters before the end credit roll. One of the script's many flaws comes from the obviousness of a few reveals that are supposed to tie everything together by the time of its action-packed finality. Even the autism angle is more of a gimmick. This is only a shortcut that's used in the narrative as a means to solve a series of intense mathematical puzzles and to also display extraordinary abilities without the need for further explanation other than, hey, he's gifted in ways we could never understand, so he's almost like a superhero in that way. Subplots involve Treasury Department agents with troubled pasts deducing the identity of the accountant in ways that are nearly as prodigious as that of the genius hero. those only add up to the pileup of implausibility that ends up hampering the plot from taking root in enough reality to sow any of its conceptual seeds. It's ironic that the more the film tries to explain the character motivations, the less sense any of them actually make. As a film, The Accountant is not a fully realized story so much as it is a collection of high concepts and B-movie plot points, and those aren't quite enough to make for a compelling watch for anyone wanting something to mull over beyond the superficial setups to preposterous confrontations that reek more of the perspiration of overexertion than they do the breath of inspiration of a story well told. And unfortunately, that means I'm going to give The Accountant 2 stars out of 4. And 2 stars on my scale means that I do think that it is flawed in a way that makes it ultimately not really worthwhile for anybody who is not a determined fan of pretty much baseline action thrillers. This is very generic at its core and then overdone with a lot of these characters that end up really not meaning much. It's very cartoonish in a certain respect. The kind of thing that you would see in superhero films, but unfortunately this is supposed to be grounded in reality. And unfortunately a reality that none of us can really recognize. So 2 stars out of 4 for The Accountant. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope that you were patient enough to catch this review a few days late, and I hope that you do understand. Sarah is my frequent movie-going companion, and she did not catch this one with me. I ended up sparing her the boredom that she probably would have had she took this one in. But I will be discussing some of her takes as we get into other films that we do end up seeing together. So we'll get a little bit more perspective on these reviews for sure, as well as my stepdaughter Lily when we do watch a family film too. If this is your first time listening and you enjoyed this review, I do encourage you to click the subscribe button. If you've been listening a while and you want to support the show, I do encourage you to leave a review on iTunes, or you can go to patreon.com/Quipster and leave a donation and help with some of the funding to keep this podcast growing strong throughout the next year and beyond. Until next time, I do hope that you enjoy your time anytime you get to go to the movies, and if you end up seeing The Accountant and have a different take, or you do agree, you can send me a note. Go to Quipster.net and find out my contact information. Quipster.net, QWIPSTER.net.